Hey, today's topic's going to be about gender and sexuality and the spectrums that they fall under and the differences between the two. First, I have a new intro. Hey, I'm going to start this with an apology. This might end up being a little long, and this might end up being a little rambly. This is still something I'm kind of discovering for myself, but hopefully this will help me kind of put it into terms. I don't know. But anyway, gender and sexual orientation. Two separate things. And that gets confused quite a bit nowadays, so briefly, gender, you typically associated with what you're born with, guys and girls, male and female type situation. Now, that's overly simplistic, and there's a huge spectrum in that as well. That's the standard binary roles that the world tends to see, but there isn't anywhere in between, or even none. We'll get to that. It's just it can be very fluid, as with many things. Same kind of thing goes with sexual orientation. They're straight, gay, lesbian, whichever. And in between you've got bi. But there's also the spectrum right there as well, because you have people who are maybe gay some of the time, but can be attracted to whatever. It all is kind of fluid. There is this huge spectrum on both counts between gender and sexuality, where you can fly anywhere in there. That's the hardest thing that most people don't get, because most people are not exposed to it, is the fact that there is any possible combination of all of the above or none of the above. It's kind of a difficult concept to grasp. It's actually something I've only recently been really delving into, and man, is YouTube a great resource. There are so many people's stories out there that talk about so many different things. You can spend years probably studying it all, seeing people going through transitions and coming to terms with how their gender and their sexuality and how society sees them, and it's very impressive what you can find out there and what you can learn about yourself in the process. Now, we'll hit some terms and whatnot as we go along here, but I figure the best way to kind of talk about some of this is, well, I kind of want to talk about myself, mostly because this is something I'm just kind of coming to grips with, or maybe that's not even a good term, more along the lines of finally understanding, at least in terms. And man, society loves labels, don't they? They love to, everyone loves to have a label for things. So I guess the easiest way to start this, and apologize if I look over here from time to time, there's another monitor over here. It's got websites and whatnot on it. So we'll stick with society and labels, and best way at this point is I basically fall under the genderqueer umbrella, trans umbrella type situation. Now, it's not saying that I was born in the wrong body or something along those lines, where you've got what most people, when they hear the word trans or queer or something along those lines, is like, oh, he was, a girl in a guy's body or a guy in a girl's body, and that is legitimately out there. But in my particular case, it's one of the, and that's what's taken me a while to come to, is it's one of those both and none. Hopefully I can explain this. It's one of those things where, and I can go back in time, and there's a little story I want to mention. I had a friend of mine years ago when I started college. He's was kind of a teacher of sorts in different alternative religions, if you will. And we'll get into religion in a different video because that's not this one. But he's a shaman, or was a shaman. He passed away since then. But one of the things, working with him and learning different ways, he had mentioned to me, and I had never really grasped the significance of it, but after working with him for months and months, he was just like, he had a term that he used, two-spirit. He described me as two-spirited individual, and I never quite got the reference on it. I never quite figured that out until lately, when I've been discovering all of this and reading up on it. Basically, it's from Native American traditions and whatnot. A person who basically is kind of fills both the male and female roles. They end up traditionally kind of like an in-between between the two sexes, if you will. And I never quite caught that, but now, looking back, it's like, I was right around the time when I was coming out, back when I, gay at the time, but it makes more sense because, I've never quite felt that any of that was right either, and I know I'm now confusing orientation and gender, but bear with me. It's one of those things where I've always had the whole, we've got the traditional roles. Sometimes it's one of those, you have the more, I can feel the more understanding connection with the female roles, nurturing, understanding, caring, that type of thing. When then there's times where I have more connection to the male roles, the protector, strong, must, I am man, hear me roar type situation. And then there are times where, neither. I mean, I've had my, I'm just kind of neutral, floating in between the two. Heck, I've been kind of doing that for the last 10 years. But it's almost fluid in and of itself, and that's why I kind of like the whole term genderqueer, because it itself is kind of a fluid term. So while I did say both or none, while I have no need that I don't like I don't like my body. No, I love my beard. I'm not looking to masculinize or feminize. Although from time to time, gender neutral or null would make more sense. And wow, that always sounds so weird when I say that. It's like it's one of those things that's very hard to describe. And I'm still trying to learn better ways of describing it. And this video is probably not going to do it justice. But it's that in that. I remember reading another story where someone was like doing a presentation on gender, and they were. I think it's in. There's a book that I don't know if it was in Gender 101 or Transgender 101, where this lady was giving a presentation and talking about gender and trying to find a way to explain it to people. And it's just like asking the question. It's like, so okay, you're a guy. Well, how do you know? How do you know you're a guy? Ignore everything else. How do you know that you're a male? Oh, well, I'm blah, 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 because I have a dick, or because I'm strong and blah. It's like, no, what if you didn't have one? You had an accident and you lost all your external genitals and blah blah blah. It's like, does that still mean you're a male or not? It's like, well, cutting a long story short, it's just like, well, I just know. Well, that's the hard part with the whole gender thing, is it's more along the lines of it's an innate knowledge that you just know. Because it's really, it is not something that is easily definable. And that's, I swear, if society would pay attention to that more, it would make it so much easier if there wasn't these hard, fast boxes. Everyone loves labels. Everyone loves boxes. Everyone must be put into one and be categorized, or else it doesn't make sense, and then you're just wrong. So, things change. People are fluid. People evolve. Some people start out life, male and straight, move on later to be gay and, more feminine, and not in the traditional sense that most people think when that comes to mind, or, more feminine and straight. It's like, it's one of those hard to pin down things, because there is no real thing to pin down. It's how the person is kind of feeling at that particular time in their life, how they've come to identify and understand themselves. It does change. I mean, yes, there is, and this is the part that it takes some people years to understand. Because yes, there are times where it's more of kind of a binary thing, where you have, the whole born in a physical body of a, let's say, female, and the innate sense that I'm, a pure male, and then that's where you get, FTM, transitioning, and that kind of thing, and that. That can seem like a hard and fast type situation, and the same goes for the opposite. Although a lot of times you'll notice a fluidity as that changes, especially in the middle of transition, is a lot of times you'll notice a bit of a fluidity as the evolution occurs and the transition happens. I know I'm doing a terrible job at going on this, and here comes that rambling. But I guess what it all comes down to is there's no such thing as one or there's no such thing as a binary system for gender. Period. There is a huge spectrum, and it can change over time and evolve with different people. Myself, started life out straight male, but come to realize, no, not really. I definitely have my female aspects, and I definitely have my male aspects. And there are times when I have neither. I definitely feel more that I fall right into sometimes the middle/slightly feminine most of the time. But it can vary back and forth a bit, depending. And this will have to go into the whole religion and spirituality section of it, because it's more of that traditional role of the shaman. They tended to be more aware of both sexes, to be able to work with both sexes. Because you need that connection and understanding to be able to help someone. That's why, more than just propriety, that's why a lot of times, for females you get female doctors, for males you get male doctors, and I realize we're blurring that a little bit more and more, but, back in the day, that's pretty much how you handled it. They can understand each other better. Wow, I know I did a terrible job at that. But that falls back under the category of you just know. You just know that this is how it is. Whether that falls under the binary societal norm or somewhere in the big spectrum. And the same thing, and I realize I've spent 15 minutes and I hope I can upload this without editing. Same thing falls with sexuality, and I didn't really touch into that much. Started out life straight. No, identified gay. No, I kind of identified bi. No, I kind of... Fluidity. Honestly, there's the whole, I can see myself, finding women attractive. I can find myself finding men attractive. More so lately than prior. But, I've had girlfriends, I've had boyfriends. I can pretty much go either way with that. Again, I tend to more identify with the male side, but, I still think my, last girlfriend is very attractive. It's one of those difficult things where you just kind of know. That's just how you are. All right. I guess the whole point of this is that there is no binary when it comes to gender or binary when it comes to sexuality. There is a huge spectrum across the board. People fall in all categories and can even change as they evolve in life and discover themselves. The easiest way to put it, though, and most succinctly as possible, I am queer and I am me. And that's all that really matters.